Hey there, I'm Mark, and I love Maryland Heights. And one of the reasons I love Maryland Heights is there are so many amazing stories and amazing people to share. Some of those people are very, very small. And so I'm very excited to share with you today someone who is not quite so small, but very good with small little people, Joni Wallace. Joni Wallace, welcome to I Love Maryland Heights.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So our paths crossed in 2017. You are a preschool teacher originally, and then a preschool director here at the church that I get the privilege to serve. And you've been the preschool director since COVID. And you really done a great job relaunching our preschool program because that was a hard time for everybody, including preschool. And I'm excited because you have really proven yourself to be a childhood expert.
No, we're going with that. I enjoy it. So, yeah.
So you have 3 of your littles of your own, and those aren't the only little people you take care of because you're taking care of all sorts of preschoolers. Had a couple of classrooms under your leadership. And I thought this would be an awesome opportunity because you are really good at helping parents teach and raise up their children, not just knowledge-based, but socially and their emotional development and spiritual development. But you also really seem to help parents and families enjoy time together instead of just, hey, here's your device. Now that you're 4 years old, here's your device. And so I'm sensing, I know your answer to this, is it possible for people to enjoy their family members without devices?
It is possible to enjoy your family members without devices. And in fact, I think that's some of the best family memories that you can make, whether they be silly or, things don't go exactly according to plan. There's so much you can do off screen that is just phenomenal life lessons, and you learn a lot about each other and how you can thrive together. And it's we like being device free a good chunk of the time. So
and I think most people want to pass their values on to their children, and they don't want their children to make their life a complete explosion of mess. And you really can't do that if you don't mean a lot to your children. But if you mean a lot to your children, you can pass on those values. And so I love the connectivity that you really encourage for kiddos. So the reason why I wanted to have you on today is I know you are phenomenal at coming up with really creative activities that families can do together. And so as we get into that, I want to help people just kind of hear your backstory, because not only are you a content expert, not only do you know great things in the area to do, especially as we're looking into the summer, May, June, and July, but I wanted to help people kind of introduce you to them by letting them see what a awesome person you are, kind of hear your backstory. So can I ask you all the personal invasive questions?
Yep, I'm excited. Let's go.
What's your social security number?
Just the last 4 words. What the whole thing?
The whole
whole thing. Sure. We can leave that at the end. People can know it at the end of the message. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be
there
the Easter egg at the very end. Then people will definitely listen to the end.
Use it all you want. Yeah.
Okay, so after you got a social security number, you went to school.
I did.
For at least a few years?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay. So did you go to kindergarten outside of the home?
I did. And I remember it was a half-day kindergarten. And I loved it. And yeah, I was in the morning. I was in the morning time, not the afternoon time.
Which is the same thing as the program that you're currently leading. It's a morning program. We're going to get into that, but why half day is a really powerful option for families. So you went to school?
I did.
So you're a teacher. Most people, when they're going to school, they're trying to get out of school, trying to graduate and get out and everything. What happened? Were you great at school? Did you love school all the time?
So let me think back then. There were subjects in school that I enjoyed. There were some that weren't my favorites. Math was always a struggle of mine. I remember that much. But I really thrived, and, I loved band. That was one of my favorite times of the day. I enjoyed, learning new things, and I feel like I appreciated academic work more so in college, especially later in my college career. When I got into subjects that I was a little bit more passionate about, and I knew that that's where I was wanting to go in life, I think that's where I decided, learning is actually kind of neat, and it's actually kind of important, and we can do a lot of things with it. So I think later on in my education was where I started to appreciate more.
So you said you love band. That makes a lot of sense with what I know about you. So you know how to play a couple of instruments. I know you do this a lot in your classrooms. I'll just be working, doing emails, talking to people on the phone, counseling people, and I'll hear music just coming down the hall. What instruments do you play? What have you played?
What have I played? So I started off with the flute in 6th grade. Loved it. Band was like I said, one of my favorite times of the day. And then I graduated into the piccolo when I was in high school, which is pretty much the same concept, but it's just a little bit of different, higher pitched, and it's got a little bit more thrill to it. I also played the bassoon for a little while. I don't know if you know what a bassoon is or if you've ever seen a bassoon in real life, but that was quite the adventure. And when I was mid-teenager-ish, that was when I picked up the guitar. My brother-in-law at the time taught me some basics, and then I picked up from other friends, and then I took that and went with it, and I loved it. And then from there, I've learned a little piano. I only know basic chords and stuff, but I enjoy that too. And I'm hoping to one day bust out the accordion and master that. I think that'd be really cool.
I imagine it's difficult to go from a wind instrument to a string instrument to a keyboard instrument. I mean, I guess keyboard instrument, to go lower, you go to the left, and to go higher, you go to the right. But with the guitar and other stringed instruments, that isn't exactly the case because a lot of those notes overlap, like 5 frets down on one string is 1 fret down on the next string. And
it is a totally different concept. But I think piano was always in the back of my mind something that I wanted to learn because, growing up, my granny always had the organ in her house. And so we would play with the organ. And so that was always kind of on my bucket list of, I'd like to learn some of that. But the concept is definitely completely different than the guitar.
So which is the hardest? Air instruments like flute, piccolo, the bassoon, stringed instruments? Because you also play not the ukulele.
Yes.
But I was very much corrected by a preschool teacher one time that it's the ukulele.
Ukulele. That's right. I mean, you could say it either way. I'll know what you're talking about. But if you want to know and sound like you know what you're talking about, totally pronounce it ukulele. So that one there's only 4 strings on the uk, right? And that was...
I'm sorry, it's pronounced ukulele.
Ukulele. Sorry, sometimes I say uk for short. I was trying to condense time and now it's taking longer to explain that. But yeah, so that one is a lot different than the guitar though, because you only have 4 strings that you're working with. And unlike the bass where you just kind of pluck out it like a fun little groovy tune, that one is different fingerings and different a way of putting it together because the name or the pitches of the strings are different. Like on a guitar, it makes sense. You go from lower to higher, but in uk, it's high, low, low, high, and it's a different vibe. I like it. It's a fun challenge.
I tried playing the guitar during COVID, and my fingers I could not actually crane pick, get down on any of these strings. And so somebody said, you could do this with like cowboy chords.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I'm just going to do the talking thing. So I have guitar playing friends, and they're phenomenal. They're magical. All right. So between wind, strings, and keyboard, are strings your thing?
Yes. Definitely more string. It makes more sense to me. I still love playing the flute. My daughter plays the flute and we have duets together sometimes. Super cute. But guitar has my heart. The type of stringed instrument has my heart for sure.
Have you ever tried playing the flute with her? Like having dueling flutes?
Yeah, we do it pretty often. So she'll, especially when she first started, she was like, hey, can you show me how to play this melody? Hey, what's this note? Hey, what's this? And so that was some of my best memories with her recently because I think from there we kind of bonded. And it's neat learning new skills with your child and something that you can pass on to them, even if something that you don't use every day in real life, like playing the flute. Yeah, seeing how she expressed herself through that and how we could connect. It's fun.
I love the idea of dueling instruments or dueling pianos. It's a big thing. All right. So you graduate. Do you go to school, like college for teaching? What's that look like?
I actually started at a Bible college. I went to St. Louis Christian College and I went there for 2 years. I got my associates and that was just in basic biblical studies with, the other undergrad type stuff that you took. And my original intention was to be a children's minister. I was on a trip in Haiti one time and there was a gentleman there and he said, but why be a children's minister? Why not just do like elementary education? And then you could be Monday through Friday and you can impact people in that way. And, there's a little bit more of a broad opening for teachers versus just Sunday school and children's ministers type full positions. And so I said, that's a good point. So then I started to pursue my elementary education degree at UMSL. And I got that with a minor in literacy through there. And I decided to go that route because I wanted to work with the littles, but I wasn't sure with what capacity until I got involved more with that degree. And I'm like, no, I like this. This is for me.
So I didn't grow up here in St. Louis, but I got here as soon as I could. And I appreciate that you went UMSL, local school.
Yeah.
So I guess you grew up here in St. Louis.
I did.
And so then you went to a high school in the St. Louis area, right?
Oh, I'll shout out. I went to Rittner. Class of 05. I love Rittner.
Woo.
Yeah.
Something was going on in my throat right there.
Yeah. I'm proud of it. I love it.
So we here at I Love Maryland Heights do not endorse any particular high school over any other high school here in the St. Louis area. We think as long as people are learning, that's fantastic.
Okay.
I'll back off. What high school did you go to?
I went to Rittner. I was class of 05.
They were the Huskies, right?
We were the Huskies. Yeah. I'm impressed that you know that, actually.
Did you do any sports there?
I did. I played basketball a little bit in the beginning, and I did tennis all 4 years.
Do you still play tennis?
I do from time to time.
Nice.
I enjoy it.
Do you have like a wicked backhand or a spinning the ball?
I'm not that great at spinning. I think my backhand is stronger than my forehand. I always struggle with serving. That's a difficult one for me, but it's more independent. I really enjoy that about it.
I've got a grandfather who would play tennis and he would bowl, and he wasn't very good, but he said, I might not win the game, but if there's a fight in the parking lot, I'll win that.
Wow. There you go.
It's like, there you go. That's what you're looking forward to. Okay. So I was going to ask you why teaching, but it sounds like you just always had a heart for kids. And then this allows you to do it more than just on Sundays and an evening or two during the week, but allows you actually just do like full time Monday through Friday. Is that what got you or what's the deal?
Before I landed, I guess I've always kind of seen myself as a teacher because before I landed on wanting to do elementary education, band was kind of one of my strong interests. I wanted to teach band. I loved it. This is really neat. I get to learn more instruments. I knew a little bit on this one, a little bit on that one, and I wanted to pursue that. But honestly, I think a lot of my passion was from the teachers that I had growing up as a kid. So for example, I'm still really great friends with my first grade teacher. I just saw her on Monday. We hung out, had some time together. And the way that she poured into my life and she made a difference in my life, I thought, if I could be that one person to that kid, maybe that one person that said something positive with them that will stick through into the rest of their life, or gave them that confidence, or congratulated them when they got a good grade on something they didn't think they could, and that could spill over to something monumental, in their adulthood, that would just be fantastic because that's what I had poured into my life, and it meant a lot. And so I was hoping to maybe be that to someone someday.
That's pretty awesome. I had a bunch of really great teachers, but I had several good pastors and one tremendously great pastor. And I probably ended up as a pastor because that person. Shout out to Dan Miller.
Aw, good job, Dan.
He's still around, Pastor Dan. He's such an awesome guy.
I love that.
Just as funny as he ever was, and super kind and compassionate. All right. So in the classroom, you just take time to be in music. And as we're listening to people, because we want to help them connect with their kiddos through this conversation, is it absolutely important that parents know how to play an instrument to share musical appreciation with their kids?
No, so not at all.
If I only know how to play the clapophone.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
How can I enjoy music with my kids?
Oh, man. Music with your kids. That's a big subject in itself. You don't have to have experience. You don't have to be a pro. You don't have to know how to play an instrument. A lot of it is just being willing to express yourself and be vulnerable in that moment and to meet the kid at their level too. I think when we do our songs in class, it doesn't matter how I'm dancing or if I'm dancing the same as them. They just love that we are in it together and that we are enjoying this experience and we can express ourselves in this way, right? So if you can clap, if you can sing, if it's on tune or not on tune, to be honest, most of the time I'm not, and that's okay. Or you might not be, and that's okay. But just to have that overall experience of making that personal connection, of making that time that they can remember that, right? So you don't have to have much experience.
And that can be spontaneous. Just pick a music streaming service and just sing along with the songs, or put it on TV and have the karaoke version. Just sing along. Yeah. And just enjoy it. So since you were going to possibly be a music teacher, as a teacher, you could just say, here's the facts, here's how the world works. And so what does music do for the brain?
Music for the brain. For my experience, I have noticed that it just opens up this new way of grasping a concept or grasping a feeling or expressing maybe something you went through and you can't quite put it into words, right? And it's something that everybody has their own preferences to. Everybody makes a connection to differently, right? Everybody has a different style of music that they like. Everybody has a certain song when they hear it, they're like, oh, my grandma used to sing that to me. Or, I was going on this trip when I heard the song for the first time. Or when it comes to what we do in preschool, this week we learned how flowers grow, and we learned it through a different version of head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So it's a very
common... What was that song? How'd it go?
We went roots, stems, leaves, and flowers, leaves, and flowers. And it was really cute. And they kind of shake their toe when they do the root part. It's really cute. When you look at how music influences us, we don't realize it, but there's so much that we can recall back from childhood in music form, right? Like the other day, one of my teacher assistants mentioned Toys R Us, and I was like, I don't want to grow up because I'm a Toys R Us kid. Oh, man. And I'm like, I went to that store maybe twice as a kid, but that jingle just gets stuck in your mind. It has a certain memory. It has a certain connection to something, and there's certain things you just don't forget over time. I don't know why I know that song, but that's what I'm hoping to do within the classroom, whether it's a version of How Jesus Loves Me or, the story of Easter through song, which is what we did recently, which was so moving. It was really cool. Or if it's knowing how the metamorphosis process works within the butterflies, if they can go home and sing it to the grandma, and then maybe the grandma keeps singing it for a few weeks and they keep singing it together and you can get it in your brain. And it's such a beautiful way to express and to learn without making it a big thing, right? It just feels natural.
I've heard it said that no one goes home reciting a sermon, but people do go home singing a song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for church, oftentimes people will say, well, just give us like more Bible or more words and just more knowledge. And, the songs are just like filler. And it's not the case, because you could teach somebody, but if you're not giving them music, you're just making the faith like a brain thing. The same thing with school. It's just a brain thing. But if you can actually use music, you can engage the emotions in wonderful ways, just in wonderful ways in church, in school, and just when you're teaching your kids fun things. When my kids are really small, for us to teach them their address and a parent phone number, contact number.
Yeah.
We could have told them the numbers, but it wasn't sticking. And so we came up with a song like, it was a number and then Donnie gave, da-da-da-da, Donnie.
Yeah, and that's how, and it worked.
That's where we live with their big guy bear. And it stuck. And they still know that song.
Sure, yeah.
It just sticks. So you are a preschool director. And sometimes people say, I don't need to hire somebody to do that. And of course it costs. And that, we're fine, or they can just hang out with grandma or something like that. But something that is neat in the preschool by being in a group of other people is they get to talk to other kids. They get to see how other kids learn and how other kids don't share like they share. So they have to deal with these coping skills. What does the socialization of being there with other kids who don't have to get along with you, what does that teach a kid? What does that do for a person's development?
Being able to learn from people in a social setting like that is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, stepping stones to our educational career. For example, when an only child comes in and they're not quite used to sharing these toys, right? There is a cause and effect there that they're going to learn. If I don't share my toy, this person's getting upset.
They're going to learn that really quick.
They're going to learn it really quick. And that's something that we work through and we talk through. But, you can learn so much from people, how their perspective is going to be completely different from yours. You lay a thing of blocks out and the student is going to build a bridge. This one's going to build a monkey. Somehow this one's going to make a waterfall. Do you know what I mean? And you can learn from each other and I never thought to do it that way. How'd you do that? And then from there, it's opening up questions. It's opening up, wow, that person, must be really cool. That person must be really smart. Or they look really fun because they're playing with Barbie dolls or, whatever. And we can learn just the differences of approach of education. And if you do something a certain way and it's received well, or if it's not received well, you learn a lot through that way as well. And social interaction is huge at this age.
If you're just hanging out with parents at home or grandma and grandpa, everything you do is fantastic.
Yeah, it's the best.
But then when you work with other people and then you make a monkey and it doesn't look anything like a monkey, other kids are going to go up and go, that looks stupid.
They do that to mine sometimes.
Tells a person, okay, I actually need to put in the effort to make it look like a monkey. And we want our kids to be sheltered, but sometimes we can shelter them too much that it hurts them. So another thing about having like a preschool setting is you can do things that a person at home normally wouldn't think to do. And one of the things, we have bugs. Are there bugs in your classroom right now, like insects?
We have some insects in our classroom. We have 9, actually.
These are like cockroaches or centipedes?
Oh, no, but maybe we should do that a lot next year. Oh, we did have centipedes in the sensory bin last week, actually.
Not real centipedes, but plastic
no,
centipedes.
No, they weren't.
Tactile.
No, that was really funny. When the kids came up to me like, what is this? Yeah, we do. We have insects right now. And that has just been the best experience ever.
Should we call an exterminator on these bugs?
No, these are beautiful. I don't want to call exterminator on these. We have butterflies. We have butterflies that just came out of the chrysali, I should know that plural form, out of their cocoons this week. The kids have just been beyond excited and thrilled to watch this process. But they're currently in their little net and we've been feeding them every day. And the kids come in, good morning, little butterflies. And it's really cute. So yeah, we have 9 part of our
So I've got a teaching degree. My wife has a teaching degree and we've got 2 kids. And the closest we ever did to something like that is we got a couple of crickets over periods of time and they shoot through the cage and then they're gone. I would have never put in the effort of finding caterpillars and housing caterpillars, feeding caterpillars and raising them and, doing the soul chrysalis thing because it just sounds like a lot of work. It just kind of sounds like a lot of effort, like a lot of okay, now what are we going to do? I just cut the grass. I want to sit at home. But it's a neat thing when your child is in a program that's a solid program that they can do things like this, like actually make butterflies. I'm a 46-year-old man and I'm finding myself checking on these butterflies because I'm just like, how are they doing? Are they having a good day? Or how many are out there? And it's a really cool thing. And these kids, they're taking a lot of pride and they also learn to be gentle because these are butterflies.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations recently about, we can't touch them. They're now one of my students knows delicate. They're delicate, Miss Joni. They are delicate, But yeah, it's such a fascinating experience because they also take ownership with it, and they want to make sure they're doing okay, make sure they're being fed. And it's worth the little bit of effort that it takes, right, to get these caterpillars in the classroom because they learn so much through life and how life works and the life cycle. And then they get this, there are butterflies and their parents come in and they can't wait to show grandma and aunt, whoever, that we have butterflies, And
that's a neat idea.
It's pretty cool.
They have something to show their parents that their parents didn't say, well, yeah, we have butterflies because we've been growing them. They actually have this thing that they can contribute to their family and tell about butterfly stories. Yeah,
and one of the grandmas came in and so we did a song about metamorphosis and the grandma said the kid was singing it at home and she was just singing it all throughout the day. It's a big word for a 3-year-old to know. She knows it and she can explain it, and so.
People are going to jump into summer and May, June, and July. And the easiest thing to do is, okay, now that school's almost done or school's done is, hey, just get your device and leave me alone till August. But one of the big reasons why I wanted you on here is you and your family, you are so good at coming up with just creative things to do as a family. I'll say, hey, what'd you do for the weekend? And you're all, well, we went ahead and we hiked the Appalachian Mountains and we found this waterfall that we could splash around in. And then we went ahead and built some rafts. And then we built a tree fort and we lived there, sustainably off the land. And then we hiked our way back. And then, it's pretty neat because we also stopped by this theme park that no one's ever heard of before that you can actually ride logs up the Mississippi River. And I'm like, and you're like, what did you do? And I'm thinking, I cut the grass on Saturday and then I went to church. But you are so good at coming up with day adventures, week adventures. So for the people who live in the area, that don't want to just say, hey, here's a stupefaction device, just watch YouTube shorts. What sort of ideas would you have for parents to build memories, to make memories, to connect with their kids and be the kind of person that their kids want to hear from?
Well, I think Maryland Heights is located in such a great area because anywhere you go in Maryland Heights, you can get on a highway pretty quickly, right? It seems like it. And there's so many free options, so many options to do within the St. Louis area. Like, for example, I learned of Suisun Park, which is not in Maryland Heights, but it's close to Maryland Heights, where you can go and visit a full functioning farm. And it doesn't have to necessarily be you jump in the car and you make a 40-minute drive, right? But there are a lot of options within, 45 minutes around the St. Louis area. If anybody has questions, they could totally reach out to us through our Facebook page and I could tell them more about that. But St. Louis is such a hub in general for free. There are so many nature parks that you can take your kids to within the area. And some of it does involve some hiking. Some of it's just more basic. And you could go and look out in nature and see what's flying around and see what you can notice in the creek. St. Louis has a lot of great creeks around the area as well. And within that opens so many questions about nature and how things develop and how God made this and how God made that. We love spending time at creeks with our kiddos. And there's also such, Forest Park does have some areas, but there's some tucked in places around there that, again, you can go and explore as a family. But one of the things that we like to do is just find beauty in the simplicity of what we have at home too. And I think that's nice, right? So one of our favorite things we like to do with the kids, just take a walk, go outside, lay on the grass. What all little things do you see? Let's collect a bunch of stuff and compare it. Let's try to carefully get something in a little critter. Right now we have a snake in a little critter container at our house. She's super cute, but we're talking about, it's opened up a lot of conversations of how snakes work and all that stuff. But there's so many different ways that you can explore with your family and it doesn't have to be such a big production. Sometimes the most simple thing is where you learn the most.
And if a child is 3 or 4 or 5, they don't need to ride a big animatronic elephant to enjoy life. They're probably not even going to remember it or really pay attention. One of the things that I really appreciate what you just said there is you can just go to a creek and that sounds so boring. Like, what are you going to do? It's just a little water. But there's so much life that's happening there.
So much.
You can lift up rocks, just kind of explore it and just kind of figure out like what's going on. What's special about this? Make little grass boats or things that will float and just go down. And you can really make an adventure of it because you're actually just doing life.
Just doing life. And it's fun. Depending on what time of the year you go to the creek, that can open up a whole nother conversation too. One time we went to the creek and as my daughter called them, there was a lot of tadpoles. And then we got to collect all the tadpoles. And I don't know, how does this turn into a frog? Or look at that dragonfly over there. Isn't it so cool how it uses its wings? I think oftentimes kids just like to learn through conversation. They just love being engaged. So, just open up the conversation of why do you think that flower is yellow and that one on the other side of the street is purple? You want to know my idea? You want to know what I think? Like, that's really cool. Here's why I think. It's all a great learning experience.
And those conversations really shouldn't go on the same topic for 30 minutes because no kid's going to have that much attention
that's true.
span.
Yeah.
You can have so many random topics. One thing, if you're looking at, like you find, did you say a tadpole?
Tadpole. A tadpole. That's what she called it.
Tadpole?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you find a tadpole, then you could say, where's mom and dad? And they're going to say, I don't know. Say, isn't that sad to be a little tadpole and no mom and dad frog are taking care of you? Because then you're going to get eaten. Why don't you get eaten? They're going to say, well, because you mom and dad. Isn't it good that you have a mom and a dad? And then you don't have to have like the whole heavy conversation of when you become a teenager, listen to your mom and dad because they know what they're doing. They were teenagers before and they actually survived it. But that conversation is going to reinforce that you are a good thing in their life. You're not the party pooper. You're actually there to help them. And those kind of conversations can happen so organically. And you don't have to have the whole 30-minute conversation. But, 700 of those conversations over the 10 years of their first 10 years of life are going to be monumentally just great momentum builders.
And it adds up and it comes back up in random times and you wouldn't think it. And you're like, you remember that? You knew that? That's one of the things that I admire, especially about one of our one of my teaching assistants here. She is so fantastic of like, she'll find the most random thing and she always connects it back to, well, yeah, God made it this way because, or isn't it beautiful because, and isn't there, it's so majestic because of this, and that. And she'll just go on this little tiny, amazing biblical rant about how phenomenal it is. And the kid's like, yeah, like I never thought of how cool that spider could be before, and it's just, and it'll come up in conversation 2 weeks later. Well, that spider we found, it has 8 legs because we had that conversation. Cool. And it is those organic moments, I think, that stick with them more versus we have to sit down and you have to know all these 5 points about what makes this an insect or not an insect. It's not necessarily that. It's how did they process it? What did they get out of it? What are their big thinking points during that time? And then how can you build on their interests from there? And that's where they're really going to thrive. Oh, you like spiders? Let's look more into creepy crawly things. Why does this one have a tail this way? Or no, da 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 da. And it's one of the neatest experiences to see their little perspectives and their little tiny bodies and their little tiny minds of how they process the most minute things. It's cool. I love it.
So when you're looking at your May, June, and July, I would encourage you, go on the adventure. And that adventure could be, hanging out in Forest Park, just Googling things, go and checking out this full functioning farm. And if they say, hey, this is how we make butter, and they're all like, hey, do you want to churn the butter? Don't say no.
Don't say no. Don't tell them no.
Just go on the adventure.
Yeah.
Just churn the butter and just, make a goof of yourself. Or,
yeah.
If it's just going to be like, let's look up some music videos with the lyrics, go on the adventure and sing the songs and just have the dance party. No one's watching, and you're only going to look dumb if you're the only person in the room who's not jumping around like a goofball.
That is true.
So just go on the adventure. Check out a creek. And I'm certain that there are going to be people who may not overly appreciate this, but I love that y'all have a snake. And I'm assuming you're not going to probably take care of the snake until it's like in a little old snake nursing home or something like that. You're going to keep it, and then you're going to release it at some point. But, that would be a really cool adventure that they're going to remember. My mom and dad used to do that. They'd find a snake, and then we'd keep it. And then one time I'd have babies, had hundreds of babies, it seemed like all over the place. And that was a really cool adventure. I remember all the way now. So go on the adventure and take your little kiddos with you and go on the adventure with them.
Sure.
Whatever that means, just have the fun and like deeply experience the moments. And I would challenge our listeners, and maybe Joni, you got a different amount of time that you'd recommend. I know we get busy, but a week will fly by, a month will fly by, and then it's August and you're rushing to get school supplies. But I would encourage you to be intentional about go on the adventure at least once a week.
Yeah.
You can definitely do it more, but at least once a week, go on the adventure and just do something that most people would shy away from.
That's a great point. That'd be really fun once a week. I knew somebody who they would pick a different local park, and every week they would try a new local park just to do something different. I like that idea. It's free. Whatever's close to your home, whatever you can do. I'm like, that's really neat.
On the north end of historic St. Charles, they got that farmers market. And
love it.
They often, like about once a month, will have various events.
They have a theme every month. And within the theme every month, there is always tables set up with a craft for your kids to do. They give away free books. They always have a free book tent. And oftentimes they have some way for kids to participate in judging this or looking at this or coloring something for this. The St. Charles Farmers Market is phenomenal to bring your little kid to.
And you don't have to have like a live dinosaur at Jurassic Park to wow your kid.
Yeah,
your kid will be wowed if somebody dresses up like George Washington and reads them a book.
Yeah, they love it.
Because in their head, the founding father of America is there, or somebody who's dressed like a big tomato. Oh my goodness, the giant tomato said hi to me. That blows their mind. I heard about the St. Charles Farmers Market, like spectacular festivals, right after they had a strawberry market.
That one was good.
And that was awesome. And it was you actually said, hey, did you know about this Farmers Market Strawberry Festival? I'm like, no, I didn't. You're like, oh, it was great. We had strawberry tacos, strawberry tamales. It was the most fantastic thing. It's my favorite thing ever. And I was like, well, thank you for telling me about it 2 days after it stopped. It was great. Another farmer's market, though, in the area that I think is phenomenal is the Tower Grove Farmer's Market.
Oh, yeah, that one's really well done.
Sprawling. But if you're taking your small people with you, on the way down, say, remember, we don't walk away from mom and dad. We're going to hold hands. We're going to pay attention to each other and, watch your kids. But it's sprawling. There's so many things, so many arms to it.
So many cultures are represented there, too, which is such a great experience for your kids.
That's a very neat thing. And I'd love next time in August to talk to you about the cultural diversity of our preschool.
Yeah.
Because it really helps. You can't do that if you're just hanging out at home.
Yeah, I agree. And, just to put in a little tidbit, like I think also too with getting through the summer days, if time restraint or car restraint is a thing, you can set up so many phenomenal sensory activities at home that can get you through the summer that are just a great learning experience, that are great for their cognitive development and their spiritual development and their social development just through basic sensory things that you can do outside outside when it's hot. There's so many different ways to engage your children that way as well through the summer.
Like I said earlier, you don't have to do something like zip line from a 1,000-foot tall tower.
No, not at all.
Wow, your kid.
Yeah.
It's just, here's a bug.
Or get a bucket, put some water in it, put some ice cubes in it, and hand them those big ladles, hand them paintbrushes. They can paint something random outside and it'll cool them down when it's hot. They can be very simple things, but what they get out of it will be big things.
And you're having fun together.
Yeah.
Which means if you do this right, they'll listen to you when they're teenagers
Yeah,
and pay attention to you. Okay, as we're rounding this out, I want to also just touch on, you and I are definitely on the same page on this, but your preschool is not just a preschool of adventures and butterflies and music, but it's also faith-filled. And when we're looking at this world, it's important to recognize who it's from and who's allowing us to be here and who's leading us. Are there any special ways that families can not just have a faith-filled preschool, but in our preschool, when you're doing faith-filled things, are there any ways that moms and dads can model the faith or just faithfulness at home?
We have like a repeat type prayer, right? Dear God, thank you for these pretzels, for this world. And it could be something random. And so by modeling how to pray and how to be grateful for the small things, I notice within my kids, they'll be grateful for the small things as well, or they'll be more eager to pray at church because they're comfortable. Like, hey, I can just have this conversation with God, or I can tell him that I'm upset with this and I don't understand this and I'm confused about this, because they have learned over time to, hey, it could just be just a basic conversation of how we feel and direct it towards the Lord. And we also, we have this little prayer song that we do before we eat as well. And so they're saying that you can pray or talk to God or have faith in different ways, right? We can also sing and we can also contribute to his greatness or, thank him for his goodness in that way too, if you feel more comfortable doing it in song form. So, and I think as parents, if we can show them that we're passionate about our faith by attending church, by talking about the beauty of him in nature, by, if you can, plugging them in also with other people within your life who are faith-filled as well, that have good and powerful influences on them. Read them books about the faith, even if it's not just straight from the Bible, right? Read them books that are based around that. All those small things really add up.
So when I was a kid, I went to a whole day preschool because my mom and dad, they were teachers. And so they both worked. And so they were unable to sort of pick us up half day. But with our children, we did the half day kindergarten because they were allowed to get the socialization. But then also we could be a lot more involved in their life because we weren't just tired when we picked up our kiddos. Mm-hmm. So it worked for us. If two parents need to work to pay the bills, or, they both work outside the home to pay the bills, obviously there are only so many options. But if a family has one parent who stays at home or one parent who works part-time, or maybe even a parent who can work remotely out of the home, your preschool that you lead is a half-day program. What are the strengths of having a half-day program?
A lot of it is kind of what you alluded to earlier. They are only here half day, right? We're only here for, just over 3 hours. They do get a lot of learning. They do get a lot of social interaction. They do have a lot of, free time play. It's awesome. But I think the best benefit to having a halftime day is because then they are still jazzed to be here within that time frame, right? And they're still happy to be here for those 3 hours. It's not dragging on too much. It's just the right amount of time, right? And then by the time you pick them up, they have, oh man, we did this, we did that, da 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 da. And to be able to recall the events of that day, I feel like is so much more stronger, for a half day versus a full day where you have to remember all this stuff, right? So those conversations are fantastic. But it's also somebody else like me or my wonderful staff get to hang out with your kiddos for those 3 hours, and then you get to have them for the rest of the day. They come home, they rest, they're happy, they're full of joy because of all the stuff that we did, and then you get to enjoy them the rest of the day. So, to me, my kids always did half day as well at that age because I just thought it was the perfect balance of they get that social interaction, they get that intellectual challenge, and then we come home and rest, and then we get to have some more time together before the business of the evening and bedtime kicks in. So I think it's just the right amount of time.
And of course, all this contact information is going to be in the show notes, as it is for all the people that come on to I Love Maryland Heights. But how do they contact you? How do they get in contact with you if they're thinking, I want to have my child have a taste of preschool. I want them to be excited when they come home and to not be tired to have that time. How do they follow up with you? How do they follow up with the preschool?
The content that you give them, I'm assuming, will also be a great link to our Facebook page. And from there, you can contact us through there. You can message, ask questions, ask for more information, or they can call the church. Let me see if I remember it. Hold on. 314-739-6121. Is that
Perfect.
Right? Yay!
You'd remember it a lot easier if it were a song.
That is true. They can call that number and Kim will put you in contact with me. We can answer your questions that way. Smoke signals work great too. I can respond to that, but phone might be a little bit quicker.
Okay. So with all those really cool ideas, I know anybody can, go on these adventures, like go on a walk and go looking for bugs and just laying in the grass. Are there any big events that that you are thinking of coming up in May, June, and July that would be sort of like must hits for people with small people?
I would really strongly encourage people to look at their local libraries, actually, because within the summertime, the libraries are always hosting some kind of event. So if you go to the closest library by you and ask them for their schedule of what's going on through the month, they'll have things like the Bubble Bus will come in, or they'll have guest speakers come in, or they have, reptile experts coming in. And so I have an example of a pamphlet right here. They'll tell you exactly what's going on for that month and when to plug in. For toddler age as well, they have story time at every library sometime during the week. So that's a free event that you can go to. You can plug in. With that, they do a lot of hands-on activities. So for me, I would definitely suggest to any young parents, check out your libraries. It's not just for getting books, which is also great to do in the summertime, but they have a host of events there. And also, within the communities, there's farmers markets that you can go to. And even if you don't necessarily buy anything from a local place, which is super cool to do, your kids can still experience seeing different people, seeing what different people are up to. Maybe they can pick up an interest of like, how did they make their own blankets? How do they make their own or whatever? So we love to take our kids to farmers markets, not only for the food, but also to see what people are doing and how they're able to do such cool things. Another local place like the Botanical Gardens, you can get in for free if you're a St. Louis resident on Wednesday mornings. So you could take your kid to somewhere like that too. And they host different things throughout the year as well.
Soulard is always a fun farmer's market to go to. It's kind of a drive, but that one's a neat one. It's very historic. So we have covered all sorts of stuff in our conversation today. And I'm so thankful that you are such an expert in all sorts of things, especially answering the invitation to think of some great things for people to do with their kiddos as a family in May, June, and July. Looking forward to having you ready for another conversation coming up in August. But until then, Joni, thank you for being a wonderful part of Maryland Heights. And thank you for being another reason why I love Maryland Heights.
There's a million toys of Toys R Us
that I can play with.
Yeah, and I just
trains to planes to video games, the biggest toy store there is.
Gee whiz. I don't want to grow up, because maybe if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid.